So I know a lot of the people here are educators, and there's often a question of how do we learn? Do we learn by doing? Do we learn by watching? Do we learn through experience? Do we learn by listening? Is it a classroom? Is it an apprenticeship? What is the best way to learn? And does the learning stick? I bring this up because last week I was pretty adamant about, hey, let's give ourselves some time to get up to speed. Let's give ourselves some time to shake off the dust. Let's stick with it because we're going to get there eventually. You'd think I'd have learned by now. I don't really need to encourage you guys to make trades, to do activity, just to, make the league as fun as it is. Because in the, I guess, 7-8 days since we last podcasted, there have been 28 trades. That's right back to midseason form, guys. So bravo, well done. That's how that's done, and you guys are the best. So I was just talking to RJ and said, I don't know what our topic should be today. And I saw we had 28 trades to review, and that's our topic for today. So you've got me, you've got RJ. I'll be on the camera for a little bit until I decide it's time to go off. But, the Fearless Leader has requested that we get a little bit more camera time going here. So I figure that just means that he misses looking at my beautiful face. But RJ, how are you dealing with having more snow in Florida than I have in New Jersey, Virginia, or Rhode Island right now?
Oh, it's a disaster. No, nobody this far south is ever prepared for snow like that. Life has grinded to a screeching halt in most situations. So it's clearing up now, but it's been a disaster for a few days, just about a week.
I remember vividly. It was my first year after graduating college. I was living in one of the suburbs outside of Virginia. It's snowing. There's not even an inch on the ground. There's really no accumulation on the roads yet. And I look across the road from where my apartment is, and there's a Suburban pulled over with its flashers on, not able to drive. And it just kind of made me think, like, who can't drive in this amount of snow? And the answer is people from, the South where they don't get a lot of snow. I was surprised because that was in Virginia, not Florida. But hey, now you guys have 10 inches of snow in Florida, and that's just got to be interesting because do you guys even have snowplows?
No. So I'm not north enough for snow. I've avoided that, but I know they don't have snowplows. I know that was an issue. Georgia, very similar thing. I believe it even reached into like Tennessee area. They had similar issues. I have a distributor in Tennessee, so I talked to him quite a bit, and they basically stopped working for 5 days because the roads were closed.
Hey, good. Well, you know what? Good on them. It's nice to actually have parts of the world that can still have a snow day and not get work done instead of the world we're in now where, hey, I telework. That's great. That means you never get a day off. So congratulations. Speaking of no days off, 28 trades. Nobody took a day off here. We'll start with the first of the post-pod fun that we had last week. I sent out a bunch of offers after the pod, and one of the counters ended up with me and Bill working out a deal of Jerome Ford for Euro 26 second. Ford at the time was less than $1 million, but with 2 years left on his rookie contract, so needed to be extended if an extension was going to happen. And right now, he looks like the RB1 in Cleveland. Every chance to go add somebody, but $7 million for an RB1 costing me a hopefully late second in 2026. makes sense. So I think it's a win, and Bill is starting the process of building up his pick stash. So kind of seems like a win-win for both of us.
Yeah, I think that was fantastic, especially compared to the values that he was going for last year. Second round pick, good. Bill can start to accumulate his chest of future draft picks to rebuild. And I mean, the contract, it kind of is what it is. At least he's under contract for the next 4 years, and like you said, he looks like the go-to guy in Cleveland. So that price is definitely justified.
And yeah, until of course they take a running back in the draft this year, and it's he's got competition, or he's the 1B, or he's the 2. But it looks good right now, and now I get to just run the gauntlet of hoping he dodges all the other competition this offseason. So the next one was a fun one because both Turpin and McLaughlin are huge contracts, well higher than they should be, getting traded for each other, which is just enjoyable.
I like it. It for the amusement factor. Oh, okay, makes more sense. Turpin's on a 1 year.
Yeah.
Turpin is the more productive player, but I can completely understand if, taking on Turpin, being able to make that decision of like franchising rather than being stuck with $19 million of Julio McLaughlin. It seemed like the Broncos gave all the other running backs ample opportunity to surpass him on their depth chart, and they just weren't effective. So I hope he stays with that team. It looks like that he has found a place in that offense.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that's perfectly fine for both teams. It definitely helps Giants running back depth, which I know was something that he struggled with last year.
It's true. And something else that's going to help Giants running back depth. So like I said, I started my monologue with, you'd think I'd learn certain things by now. And you'd think I would. You'd think I'd talk about a couple of players that Giants was having trouble, I'd say, nailing a value on based off of kind of what's been happening out there. And then in almost every case when I've done that, he's turned around and traded those players within the next week. It happened again. I'm saying, maybe he needs to think about his Blake Corum value. Well, he takes Blake Corum and a player he's been trying to trade for a pretty penny for, I'd say, at least 12 months, CeeDee Lamb, for Travis Etienne, Zay Flowers, Jaden Reed, the Falcons' second this year, and the Lions' third this year. And I believe that's the 215 and I think around the 320 or so. Do you want to go first or should I?
I mean, I'll go first. I think this trade looks better for Giants in 3 months when we are all like have dynasty on the brain and we like Jaden Reed and Zay Flowers because they're younger. But I don't really like this trade for either of them. I mean, I think it's fine. It's just moving players. But like the values there, just ETN needs a bounce back year for this to feel good.
So I agree with where you ended up. I don't love it for Falcons. I feel like that team has been needing let's take some of my offensive talent and spread it out into other areas. let's take my surplus of receivers and use some of those big names to get the rest of my roster where it needs to be. Now, we're in January. NFL games for the next fantasy season aren't going to start for another 8 months. So we've got time. But that being said, starting to make a consolidation move like this starts to limit your ability to make some of those other deals. I get that ETN is a much different player value-wise now than he was, a year ago. Zay Flowers, despite what seemed like an up and down season, scored 200 points this year. Jaden Reed, often up and down season, scored 200 points this year. So to take those two players, who I believe both second-year guys, 215 and 320, with a young running back, and trading him for a blocked running back, and look, CeeDee's a stud. Best player in the deal, no question, but also most expensive player in the deal. I feel like this is one of those that Falcons is going to make this mistake once, and he's going to learn from it, and hopefully never do something like this again. But this, I think, was paying the premium that you would expect to play for a player like CeeDee in a normal fantasy league, that because of how deep rosters are here and starting requirements, you probably don't make that same kind of deal here, or it's not that same valuation here.
That trade actually makes a whole lot more sense if you look at it as a 12-team league.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, I didn't see it like that before. Yeah, that's fair.
That's my job. I bring unique and interesting perspective to the conversation. But yeah, it's a kind of thing that goes into a trade calculator, gets proposed, and says, "Hey, what do you think?" And I bet I know we've given Giants a mountain of shit for keep trade cut. That's not my intent here. I bet if you put this deal in keep trade cut, it's going to be in the equal range. But for where we are, for how much things cost, for how our contract situation works, and the value of what picks can get you, especially this kind of year, it's a great breakdown for Giants. Really rounds things out for him, and he's just going to go shopping with those picks and continue to add and continue to make your life a living hell.
Yep.
So I like to think of myself as a relatively in the know San Francisco fan. I have no idea who the fuck this guy is. Sam Okuainonu. Again, I can't even pronounce his name because I have no idea who the hell he is. And I know most of the San Francisco players in depth and down to third or fourth, level of depth chart. So this is really scratching the edge for me here. But Chiefs was talking about him as a potential taggable player. He definitely had a couple of weeks where he really popped during the season. 110 points at the defensive tackle position. But again, it's defensive tackle. There's a reason that they're renegotiated differently, like corners, than all the other defensive positions. But 2025 fifth in the Giants, so I think that's like 528. Nothing to lose sleep over, even though I just talked about it for like 2 minutes. Ogbanya Okoronkwo. Looks like a couple of sort of, spot games where he had a sack, but I feel like his race has been run. So getting a fourth for him, and I assume that's probably just Chiefs dumping Dupree's contract.
Yeah.
Oh, how the mighty have fallen.
Yeah, both of those guys are just like rotational players at this point.
So, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's fine because one of the defensive ends is involved in the next trade. So I mean, they're basically like irrelevant.
So trades like this next one just make me happy because Chiefs was asking for a price for Dalton Schultz that I wasn't comfortable paying. Panthers was asking for a price for Bradley Chubb that I wasn't comfortable paying. And they got traded for each other, which means that they found somebody who was willing to pay that price and could make a deal happen. Because I love seeing trades happen. It's just more fun to see trades happen. So Jesse Bates is also a hell of a safety. I remember on the cheaper side, under $5 million for pretty substantial production at the safety position. Exactly a goose type of player. Plus Bradley Chubb, who's a hope for the best bounce back guy. For Dalton Schultz, which look, it's CJ Stroud's tight end. He was a huge deal in the offseason that didn't exactly live up to expectations. Only 112 points this year. And again, Agbanya, who he just bought, and Fuller, who had an okay season. But that said, two guys that the owners had I would say oversized valuations on, got traded for each other, and they found new homes, which just makes me happy.
Yeah, this is a fantastic trade. I'm surprised at how cheap Dalton Schultz is. I mean, it's justified, like with the season that he had. It's just his value was so much more like 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm. So I think, you know what? I don't know. Javonte Williams and Yannick for McLaughlin, KJ Britt, and the Lions third that he picked up in the earlier deal from the Falcons. Is KJ Britt really, really good?
No. The Bucks don't really want him. They've benched him. They've tried to replace him. He's just average, and like average still gets you on the field at linebacker sometimes.
So the starting running back, and Javonte, I have to double check this. I'm pretty sure he's going to be less expensive than Jaleel McLaughlin is right now.
Yeah.
So you have the starter, and his fifth-year option is going to make him less expensive than Jaleel McLaughlin is right now. The Yannick contract isn't great, but it's not like punishment level. Yeah, Javonte Williams, $15 million next year.
Yeah, and he's also going to be a free agent though, like in the NFL.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm sure somebody can lay out a very understandable and good case that McLaughlin and Britt III is absolutely a steal for breaking down Javonte Williams, but I'd rather have Javonte.
I mean, right now, out of that whole deal, the third-round pick is probably the best thing. Depending on where Javonte goes, like I think there's still, like he still has some production. He's only 24. He'll be 25 before next season. Yeah, somebody's gonna pick him up and give him an opportunity.
I mean, that's the thing. Yeah, he's like I said.
I mean,
he would make a great Brown. Honestly, if the Browns want to give him a prove-it contract, something like an $8 million deal, prove-it contract, come in, get right. You and Florida are 1 and 2, and then they can use their draft capital and other things. Like that makes a lot of sense to me.
I mean, he's definitely the right type of player to just pick up now and hold through the off season.
Yeah. Then Lions, having just traded Jagleel McLaughlin to get Cavante Turpin to, I think, transition tag him. He trades his 5th this year for Kareem Hunt. You know what? Sure, why not? 11 million, but definitely had a stretch this season where he was productive. I could see Kansas City just kind of going the Jerick McKinnon route with him, saying like, "Hey, you fit our system. We like you. Stay here and win with us," instead of going out there and trying to make more money. And Kareem Hunt at this point career saying, "Fuck it, as long as I don't punch any woman in the face, I should be okay."
Mm-hmm. That was Joe Mixon. I think Kareem Hunt kicked a girl. But yeah.
That was Ray Rice.
Oh boy. I think we just brought up another problem in the league, but we've already known that.
Yeah. All right. So this is the one that people were really excited about.
Uh-huh.
They like the big trades. We talked about a big trade with Falcons and Giants. Another big trade going down. Look, Bill wanted to sell, and we've talked about the challenge with selling when picks are consolidated. There's me, there's Dolphins, there's I think Saints, and maybe Chargers to go and get picks right now. And Miami seems to not want to trade those picks at the moment. Saints has been trading those picks, but kind of around the edges and trying to hang on to some of the really valuable ones. So sometimes the nice thing about having a lot of picks is it allows trades like this to happen. So I've lamented the fact that tanking kind of sucks, and I want to build this team slowly but surely. This was a nice little starter pack that I got here. Justin Herbert, Breece Hall, Marvin Harrison Jr., Christian Wilkins, John Grenard, Joey Porter Jr., and Andre Cisco for the Steelers first this year, the Colts first this year, the Bears second this year, the Panthers first next year, the Jets first next year, the Giants first next year, my third next year, and the Ravens third next year. So in terms of picks this year, I think that's the 117, the 107, and the 204. And then 1, 2, 3, 4 first next year, or 1, 2, 3 first next year, and 2/3. So in my opinion, I obviously took the trade, so I was happy with the compensation I was getting back for these picks. Based off current prices, I probably got a steal. Now, Panthers, Jets, and Giants were bottom 5 or 6 picks this year. Doesn't mean they're going to be next year. And then 107 and 117 this year. Not a bad place to start for the rebuild. But sometimes being able to make the deal allows you to make a deal like this. So, I don't know. That's all I have to say about that.
I mean, I agree. I could do somewhat of a breakdown. I mean, Breece is 2 firsts. Marvin's 2 firsts. You can call that the 2 this year. Make it sound a little bit better. Herbert looked awful in his last game, so first round pick because he's already an inflated price. And Jonathan Grenard stands out as like somewhat cheap. Guess you could justify like the second round pick. So there's a little bit of value that Bill missed, but I completely agree with what you're saying. if nobody else is really actively moving picks and Bill wants picks right now, sometimes you got to do something like that because it's not like you lost some awful amount of value. You know, we're not searching for like first round picks that he's missing or anything like that. You know, sure, maybe you could say like one or equivalent value, but you know, I think this is a fine trade. It starts his rebuild, and he still has like some pieces to move off of. Will McDonald, who seems to be popular in chat right now.
Oh, you noticed?
Yeah, a couple of other things, but yeah, like now he's set. He knows what he's doing for the next year, almost 2 years. And like you have a great amount of stuff. Like you said, you would have liked to take a little bit more time and like build it out, but you have what is Marvin like top 5, top 7 dynasty wide receiver who is 22 years old.
Yeah.
You have a top 3 running back who is 23. Justin Herbert took a hit, you know, as far as his, you know, what he did in the postseason, but he was still a very effective quarterback. Put up 286 points. He's young. So, like, yeah, you can't, you know, if you are going to consolidate everything and just make a big move like that, I don't think you could ask for better as far as like where those guys are in dynasty rankings.
Yep. So close my eyes and hope for the best.
Yep.
Bill continued to break things down. Trent McDuffie for Elijah Molden and Green Bay's third. Look, spending a third round pick in the draft on a corner is usually frowned upon. So getting a third round pick for a corner, usually a solid return. So even though it's a later third, good on him there. Cam Akers for the Niners third. I was surprised by this. I know he had a bit of a resurgence with Minnesota late in the year, but I didn't realize that he had staying power. I mean, at the end of the day, it's the Niners third, which is, I think, in the 314 or so range. But, you know, that seemed high for me.
Yeah, I agree. I was a bit shocked that he got a third round pick out of Cam Akers, but yeah, I mean, good move overall.
Yeah, for sure.
Dolphins has the picks to spend.
No, definitely. So thank you, Colt, for joining in as well.
Hello.
We'll get to the Will. We just finished our conversation about Will McDonald. I know you don't really have anything to add on that.
I made my position clear.
I would say so.
Yeah, Goose would disagree on a matter of principle, but
Goose will disagree with anybody just for the opportunity to disagree.
Yeah, I'd say that's fair.
I mean, look, yeah, I've made this point before, so I won't go into my 5-minute diatribe about it. You hope you end up in the job that you're well suited for. Goose is very well suited to be a lawyer. I'll leave it at that.
Your Honor, just because the facts say it's wrong does not mean that my client didn't say that it was right.
I'm saying some people end up in the job they should have, and that is a very good suited job. I'm glad you brought your expert with you as well, Rory. So
yeah,
you know, when we're looking for some hard-hitting analysis, we'll ask them some questions too.
he keeps me in check, reins in any of my wild takes.
Yes,
we all need that.
All of his statements so far, I agree with.
Yes, I agree.
So next one. So this is an interesting one for me. The value of Jonathan Brooks right now, because I know I think I talked about it a little bit on last week's pod, but like I said, learning my lesson. If I talk about, hey, maybe it's better for Giants to just wait and hold the player for a little bit instead of trading them right now, and then Giants turns around and trades that player. Jonathan Brooks for the Chargers, 26 second, Tampa's 26th third, and the Chargers 26th fourth. Look, I didn't think anything more than a third made sense for Brooks right now with 2 ACL injuries to the same ACL. A 26 second, you could argue, is equivalent to a third this year. I know there's a school of thought that thinks that. So, hey, there you are. To quote RJ, I kind of hate it for both teams, but I can understand why both teams did it. I think I would have just held in both situations.
Yeah. So I understand Giants' standpoint of just wanting to be done with it, get some draft capital to go purchase other things. That's fine. And I don't hate the idea of like Chargers. Chargers is a perfect type of team to just stash Brooks at like a discounted rate. Just I still don't really like the value. Like a second. That's all I think anybody should really pay for Brooks. So like, it's not some egregious overpay. It's only a third and a fourth, but
Yeah. The Giants have been going back and forth with me for a while, at least a week and a half, trying to get something done with Brooks. He kept sending offers, and I only ever responded with one thing. I said, I don't like it, but I will pay for him, and this is what I'll pay. And I made him an offer, the Panthers 2026 second-round pick. I said, that is the absolute most I will pay for Jonathan Brooks. And he didn't want it, so he ended up getting what I think is probably a better second and then some additional picks on top of that. So good on him. But at the end of the day, like you said, he's already had 2 ACL injuries to the same knee. Chuba Hubbard has been signed. He is the team's running back now. I don't really see that changing unless something drastic happens.
And look, sometimes shit happens. And I would have picked Brooks at exactly the same spot that he got picked there. I probably would have traded for him at a value that is exactly what Giants traded for him at. He just didn't hold that value because it's football and shit happens.
Yep.
My first year of Dynasty, I drafted Adrian Peterson, and I had a plan of being bad so that I could grab Marcus Lattimore out of South Carolina and have the two of them as my future back to build the rest of my team around. And then his knee exploded. And he was never the same. And that plan went to hell. So, look, you can love how somebody looks on tape. You can love how they're going to pan out. You can hope for the best. And sometimes just luck's not in your favor. But,
Yep.
Jonathan, this is a name that I didn't think I'd ever mention again, but Jonathan Brooks' value has tanked more in 1 year than Darius Geis did in his rookie year.
Ooh, that's true. Forgot about it, yeah.
It's close because Geis was the 105 or 106, I think, here. And Brooks was the 111. So it's close.
Didn't Geis still hold some value after he got hurt, though?
He was still assumed the starter the next year and then played like 2 games and went right back to IR, if I'm not mistaken.
It was something like that. That was a long time ago. I don't know how you guys remember that so well. 105, 8 years ago.
It's the only like comparable thing.
So to move up for that pick, I think it was the team who picked it up gave up a substantial amount. So that's why I remember it. But because I think I got like 4 first rounders for that pick, I think.
That's incredible.
But
oh, that's painful. I don't know who that was, but that's painful.
anyways, defense for offense, Peyton Wilson, who was a first rounder last year for Isaiah Likely, with the Titans, 1 for 1.
This
I
is
like it.
gross. I'm sorry. This is gross.
Go on, preach.
Isaiah Likely is a absolutely locked in value at tight end. 4 years, $6 million. He's 24 years old. He won't be 25 until basically the NFL draft. And has basically done nothing but get better every year. And Peyton Wilson, he could be a phenomenal linebacker, but he's going to be over 10, $15 million. That's just how his contract is going to work. He's literally older than Isaiah Likely and has an injury history behind him. And his defense, I've always heard, and I've done it in the past, so I don't have a ton of room to talk, but everybody says never trade defense for offense or never trade offense for defense. I guess. So, I mean, I love it for you, but it's a lot to pay for a middle linebacker.
So
Isaiah
Wilson's on his rookie deal still. So it's not $10, $15 million. He's still on his rookie deal. Likely,
No, I'm just saying he will be eventually.
So will Likely
No, Likely's locked in at $6 million.
for
Completely locked in.
years.
Well, when you extend him, as long as you extend him in the next 2 years, as long as he's not holding out, he'll still be $6 million.
Pats has already extended him.
I mean, you can convince somebody that it's a backup tight end for a starting linebacker, and like, it doesn't feel like a robbery. Sure, I'd probably prefer the Likely side, but I don't think it's, I don't think it's horrible.
And they
Is
are,
Peyton Wilson a starting linebacker? Is he starting for sure?
yes,
He's good enough to be a starter.
yes, it's him and Queen in the middle.
Okay. And what happened to who was the other guy?
Landon Roberts,
Yeah, Roberts.
he got
He still played a significant role, didn't he?
replaced by Peyton Wilson whenever Wilson finally showed that he was healthy.
Yeah,
Because like at the end of the year after the bye, he still only scored like what 40 points, 50 points.
Yeah, but teams were definitely not exactly like running the ball against them and getting stopped. That defense went to shit real heavily.
That's fair. I mean, it's not like I don't like Peyton Wilson. I think he's a good linebacker. I like him as a fantasy asset. Obviously his injury history is a little nervous, but it's defense for offense. And I mean, 9 times out of 10, you usually take in the offensive side unless the defense.
The only way that this is a landslide win for Mike is if Mark Andrews is not a Raven next year.
impossible.
If you ask the fan base, that's the idea.
Right. So you're talking about a split time backup tight end versus a guaranteed starting linebacker. I mean, I get it. There's a difference in like values of the position, but at the same time, like, who gives a shit about a tight end that's definitely overshadowed by a better one?
Guys, Likely's not even on my team anymore, so let's not.
No, I understand.
You already traded him. I missed that trade.
You haven't gotten that far yet.
I'll say this will be the last thing I say on Likely. When it comes to tight ends, I like personally at least to take the long-term look. And it actually younger than Peyton Wilson, 24 and
By 3 days.
6 days. Okay, it's 3 days. Still same age essentially. You're talking about a guy that's already been in the league for 3 years. He has all the NFL experience since he was 21 years old. And at this point, with Andrews coming up on 30, he's only going to get better. So, yeah, maybe he'll never be the Travis Kelce or, Zach Ertz of 4 years ago. But I think that it's safe to say that if Andrews does go anywhere, if he ends up, aging out, which is definitely possible, he could have an Andrews-like role in a year or two.
He's Noah Gray.
He's Noah Gray has never
I'm-
scored 100 fantasy points in his entire
No, I'm talking about by role. Like,
Oh, I gotcha.
he's the ultimate backup for the star.
I'd say 2019 Dallas Goddard when Zach Ertz was still there, but they were both very productive.
That's fair.
I like that comparison. And then Dallas Goddard never got healthy, so he's still like mid.
He just aged out of being like a good value by the time he came into being like super productive.
Yeah. That's all I have to say. Like, we move on.
All right. Titans continuing on. Adam Butler for Tyus Bowser, Charles Harris, and a fourth. Appreciate him jumping on the Buccaneers grenade and taking those players out of rotation.
Oh, I'm astonished how fast Tyus Bowser just became a nobody.
I'm shocked that Adam Butler got a fourth.
Well, I'm guessing he's going to get tagged.
I guess that was more. That just feels like a weird cap dump.
Oh, it does look like a cap dump to me. I mean, Adam Butler's gonna be 31 before the next season, so it's not like he's a long-term buy.
Yeah. Well, I just think Bucks probably lets his contract expire, and he just paid that for the contract year dump.
I could see that. I'm a little surprised. Maybe I'd have to go look when Adam Butler was acquired by the Titans. But I would think 170 points is good for a third round comp pick. Wouldn't you? Oh, he got him. No, that's when the new trade happened. Yeah, well, I'm going to go look actually because he might actually lost a pick, the Titans, on that trade.
He might already have a third round comp pick, in which case it's the fourth, and I don't know.
Yeah, he was DT 10 by overall and defensive tackle 13 by points per game. That's good for a third. Liam, please stop turning my Xbox on. I gotta go look at Titans. See.
All right. Well, back to Rory again, because that's what we're here to talk about. Exactly. 114 for Jalen Waddle. Yeah, I like Waddle. I think that's probably a fair price for him. Some might probably say it's an overpay, but a year ago that would be a massive underpay. So, with who knows, Tyreek said he was done, then he's not done. You know what? Waddle's not a bad thing to have.
That's a fantastic price for him.
Yeah, I think it's great. His fifth-year option, first in the middle of the round, sounds great.
Yeah, it's 114. And looking at the players in the draft this year, which I don't particularly like the draft this year, it was basically pay Jalen Waddle $23 million and then hopefully renegotiate him for a little bit less, or draft the first or second DN down. Because there's probably no receivers or running backs there that I like.
Oh, you're definitely not getting the first DN.
One of them.
The second one is in play.
I just figured I don't like this class very much offensively. Maybe Loveland or Warren at 14. I don't know. But I just.
Oh, it's way too early to speculate on the names at this point. We got to see landing spots.
I don't like the draft this year.
We don't get time to see landing spots anymore. Remember?
What?
We don't get time because the draft got moved to actual draft weekend.
I don't think it'll be as huge a deal. At least for the first 10. After that, yeah, it could be problematic.
It's going to be an interesting year for that.
I'm definitely not a fan of that.
I think it'll get moved next year, but it's a little too late for the commissioner to enjoy moving or changing a rule.
Either way.
Anyway.
We'll still got to do it.
Yeah. Taxi theft. Simon Vacchi goes to the Buccaneers. That's what I get for falling asleep at the wheel. But whatever.
Yeah.
Titans continue to tear down James Conner, James Ferguson, Ali McNeil, and the fourth from the Saints for Jameis, Kendall Fuller, L'Jarius Sneed, Tariq Woolen, and said 114. I hated this deal until I saw the 114, and now I hate to deal with the other side.
Yeah, he's got a tag Connor. Yeah, I don't know. Ferguson.
He's got Trey he's got Trey Benson. So there's really no downside other than price to tagging James Conner.
No, I get the reason for doing it from that perspective. You gave up Jalen Waddle for the first, and then this is what you get back for. Like, I don't think I would trade Jalen Waddle for what I just got back here.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay. Yeah, that's
That's a good way to look at it.
I mean, like, if you ask me, a first that wasn't involved in the trade with Jalen Waddle, like, I guess that's worth like Ferguson and McNeil. Like, Ferguson's still productive. McNeil will probably just go back to being a stud when he's healthy.
I think if Ferguson wasn't a $15 million tight end that is just locked in, like there's no real getting rid of that. I wouldn't hate it as much. But as it stands, I mean, you're trading a $23 million young receiver for a 29-year-old who's going to be $20 million when you tag him or more. $15 million tight end that's just stuck for 5 years. Who's, what do you think, marginal top 15?
Who?
Ferguson.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment.
And then Lynn McNeil, who, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love the player. I love Lynn McNeil, but he's really not that productive when it comes to fantasy.
No, he's a run stuffer, so he's never going to be like a 200+ point guy. He's just going to be consistently in like the like 150s to 180s.
He has the odd game where he gets a sack, or this year he had 2 sacks in one game. But I guess the advantage is he is $1 million DT that's just locked in and is probably almost always going to be in your lineup.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Ferguson's the big hang-up for me. I really don't like Ferguson. He's just super marginal in terms of tight end. He had essentially 3 good games all year. And he's $15 million.
Panthers is a Cowboys fan, right?
Yeah.
That makes some sense then.
He claims not to be, and then he, does that stuff.
All right. 128 for DJ Turner and Nick Bonito. I would have liked this a whole lot better if Bonito didn't make the Pro Bowl, but he did. So this becomes does somebody else want to trade extend him and give me a first for him, or am I going to take Bonito, franchise him, and then either get that first back or continue to get value at that point? So we'll see.
Are you
but
out of extensions?
he made the Pro Bowl. So
I understand that. But I think extending him now is still cheaper than tagging him.
He's
Extending him-
crazy expensive.
no,
regardless.
extending him now would be a $24 million tight end or $24 million D end.
Really?
Yeah. Because it's the average of the top 3 at the position for Pro Bowl.
Oh, okay. Well, sure. That's top 5 DN.
So I'll just pay him nothing next year and then tag him.
Oh my god. That is so much money. What do you need for it to be less?
Nothing.
You need someone to cut Von Miller right now. Does his salary still count after the waiver period ends?
Yeah.
I think so.
That's just silly. Yeah, he's essentially $20 million right now. If you extended him. That's.
So
Did you know already he was Pro Bowl before you traded for him?
Yeah.
That's tough.
So look, I mean, he's worth it for the production.
Mm-hmm.
The contract's a pain in the butt. But I mean, I'll take that production at $2 million next year.
Yeah,
And
you
then-
got at least a year or two.
and I'll tag him, and then we'll go from there.
Or you get really lucky and he gets hurt after 8 games with a mid-tier season, and then you trade him to somebody for like the 20th overall pick or something.
No.
But the Pro Bowl status still applies to trade extension.
Exactly.
Oh god, that's true. I forgot.
I mean, he's definitely worth the money. It's just a game of like when you actually want to start paying him that.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, he will just be a $20 million. What?
Basically.
The Chiefs for that one.
Sell off for Bill continues. EJ Speed for getting his 25 third back. I mean, I don't know if it's a scheme or what, but
It's
you put me in there and I might score 180 points.
you'll be top 3 in tackles in the league.
Well, he's not with,
Three.
not with the Colts right now either. He's a free agent.
Yeah.
So it's
And
gonna be
right, and they'll find somebody else. Just like before him, it was Zaire Franklin. So good job capitalizing on him still having his name associated with Indy.
that was a low offer in my opinion, and I did not plan on moving him for a third, but you know what? I have a plan in place, and I'm not going to bicker over a couple spots.
Fair.
Panthers 1 1/3 for Zach Moss. Had to add New Orleans 4th to get it, but lose Moss and New Orleans 4th for the Lions 3rd. So Moss helps him move up 20 spots in the draft.
This is a very interesting one because Zach Moss is such an unknown commodity right now because he lost his job for sure. And does he even go back to Cincy?
So I looked him up at because I know Panthers was shopping him. The Bengals can, I think, save $5 or $6 million by cutting Moss. But if you remember last year, when free agency started, like one of the first contracts given out was Bengals to Zach Moss.
Yeah.
So again, he's worth the roll of the dice. If he wasn't 13 million, I would have jumped at him. But look, it's still the same organization that loved him. He got hurt. Brown did well, but he's under contract. He's going to get a shot.
Yeah,
What's
there'll be a dual backfield for sure.
And I mean, none of the other guys there overtook him. So Elijah Moore for Tennessee 3rd. I figure I'm not extending more at that price, so don't get it twisted. I'm taking a gamble that next year he's going to perform well enough with Cooper gone for a full year that I'll either be able to trade him and someone will trade extend him, or I'll I'll get the comp 3rd for him.
I thought that was a steal.
Next one, Bucks is trying to dump Mike Williams' contract, gets a couple picks for it. Good for him.
Sorry, I was in the kitchen. I just want to say real quick on Elijah Moore. He is my Kyle Pitts. Every year, I believe he will be good. That's all.
Same.
Olamide Zaccheaus, and the 3rd that Panthers got in his Zach Moss deal to get Jaden Hicks and Jalen Carleys. Bucks wanted to convert his 26 second from the Saints into a 25 second, so does so, but gets the Chiefs second, which I think is not mid round, like to 22 or so.
It's mid late. I could go look. I could help you out.
Taxi theft or based off of taxi theft for Evan Hall. Didn't realize he was in Pittsburgh now, but so he is.
I didn't even realize he was a player worth rostering anymore.
So I told people not to get too worried about Likely because he's not on my team anymore. Likely Bills first this year and Tennessee's second this year for Dylan Labe, Jaheim Bell, Ben Sinnott, Panthers first, Chargers second, Tampa's second, and Tampa's fourth this year. I think I drafted Bell and Labe and traded them to Pats last season. So obviously I need them back. Sinnott, it's sounding like Ertz may not be so that may not be the best idea I ever had. Then yeah, it's Bill's pick. I think is 115. So Pats gets a better pick, and likely he's already extended and locked in at $6 million at tight end, which is not a bad situation to be in. So he goes from some high potential rookies to a pretty solidly locked in, I'd say top 15 tight end, and then gets the best pick out of it. So he wanted to consolidate, did that. Wanted to get some of the stuff off his roster, did that, and he picked up Likely. So I'd say win-win.
I don't even know where to begin to diagnose this trade. Let's say the first thing. Don't really particularly like any of the players you got, personally.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, the picks all kind of wash out, so. I hate it.
Yeah.
It just seems very fair.
Yeah.
I like Sinnott a lot, and I think Sinnott, if Ertz decides to hang him up, gets talked about in Trey McBride type levels next year. So we'll see what happens, and if he doesn't, maybe he gets some of that talk. Laube, I loved. He did not perform well this year, but that's going to be a new coach, going to be a new situation there. And realistically right now, all he has in front of him that he has to overcome is Alexander Madison. So that's
Big name, man.
That's a role that I'm willing to make every day of the week. Now, are other names probably going to come in there and other competition going to be in there? Absolutely. But right now,
Travion Henderson.
hey, he would be a great complimentary back to Travion.
I think there's no way that the Raiders don't draft a running back this year. So it's just a question if they draft someone late and Labe is the presumed starter, or they pick some guy up in the end of the second, early third, and he's kind of the presumed starter. I don't hate Dylan Labe. He's just one of those guys that's kind of mad for me.
Yeah, I was a big fan of his coming out. He did not perform, but that's the thing about my guys. I can't quit them. Caden Ellis for Devin Singletary, Xavier Hutchinson, and a fifth.
I don't know.
That's what 28 trades look like. An hour of content, 28 trades. And shockingly, none happened during that conversation.
Unbelievable.
That's a little shocking. I truly can't figure out why, where the idea of this trade came from.
The Chiefs Panthers deal?
Yeah, Caden Ellis is essentially what, linebacker 1? And he got Backup, if not potentially third string, if the Giants draft running back for $14 million, wide receiver 5, and a 5th-round pick.
Yeah, because it's not like Ellis's job is safe. He's a 7th round pick. He's 29 years old. Like, he could be replaced if they find a halfway decent linebacker in the draft. Like, yeah, he's super productive, but like, you can find those almost anywhere. Like, he's not a superstar. He's not more talented than the majority of the guys on rosters.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, that's what the linebacker position is. It's like a whole bunch of like average guys just being, a revolving door of like average.
Yes, I agree to a degree. If it wasn't for the fact that Troy Anderson and Nate Landman are a revolving door of injury. Let's see what Caden Ellis is contract. But, actually Landman's the best linebacker, so you guys should probably come by him. Just saying. Looks like he's kind of there. 3 years, $21 million. He signed that, 2 years ago? Last year? I guess they have an out, technically. They really wanted to cut him.
I'm not saying he's, I am saying like he'd end up being a backup by like middle of next year. Like, it's just very possible. He probably won't due to the production that he had this year, but he's not a Pro Bowl All-Pro linebacker or anything. So like, I don't think they feel some overwhelming need to keep him around.
He didn't make the Pro Bowl this year.
I mean,
245. He should have been he did make the Pro Bowl.
Did he?
Yeah. So it's basically a 1-year deal because at his age, we're not going to pay him Pro Bowl money, especially when retirement stuff starts kicking in soon. So, yeah, maybe you argue for a 3rd instead of the 5th that he got, but
I mean, look at the list of names that were like overly productive at linebacker. Like, Zach Bond was basically a nobody even early in the offseason last year.
Yeah, that's also the Eagles. I mean, they're basically like the Colts, where they're going to churn out a top 5 linebacker basically every year.
Yeah. I mean, that's just like Atlanta. Like, we got fooled, not fooled because Foye was a stud, but he did that for 5 years there and then was just quickly replaced by just anybody.
Yeah, who was the other guy? There was another guy like last year that got replaced. That was the middle linebacker for Atlanta. At least I thought it was Atlanta. And it was shocking because he was literally like top 5 linebacker stats.
It wasn't Zach Bond, was it?
No, it wasn't Zach Bond.
Was it Nate Landman?
No. Maybe it was 2 years ago. He was really expensive and he had to just get cut because no one saw. He went to free agency, no one signed him.
But yeah, that's the perfect example of why.
Rashaan Evans. Remember him? He's 27.
No, I know. He's part of the 2018 draft class.
Yeah, he had 160 tackles, a couple sacks, a couple fumble recoveries, and then just nothing.
Mm-hmm.
That was the weirdest shit. Who knows? Maybe the Panthers are clairvoyant. That's exactly what Caden Ellis will be. He'll get cut, and then no one will sign him, and he'll just be completely dead.
I think it's more about just our leagues kind of starting to follow the same like approach is the NFL. Just like if they aren't obviously like one of the superstar linebackers, their value shouldn't be that ridiculous.
Yeah. But like, what would you pay for Zach Bonnerman? Essentially nobody last year. Linebacker 1 this year. What is he worth? All things considered.
A second, maybe. Like just because he has 1 year of being linebacker
Yeah,
one.
yeah, exactly. He's Pro Bowl. He's going to need to be extended to be maintained. Yeah, a 2 is probably the farthest you're going to get.
He's nowhere near as valuable as like the Fred Warners, the Roquans, the Jermaine Pratts, like those type of guys.
Yeah,
Even
that's
though-
fair.
Even though he scored more, they are in their role for the foreseeable future. They aren't part of that like carousel of linebackers.
That's true. There's what? Essentially, what, 4 or 5 linebackers like that? Not very many.
When you talk about like the younger ones, maybe 4 or 5, and then you have a couple of just like you have Levante David, who is just he's going to be productive in Tampa Bay forever, or like Eric Kendricks, who just he's better
Everywhere
than
he
ever.
goes, he's good.
Yeah,
I like Ernest Jones a lot like that. It's like, yeah, he may bounce around, but he's just a stud everywhere he goes.
all of those guys that were like somewhat intermingled in those like trades and drops and all of that throughout the season. Jones, Baker, Dodson, all of those. I think they're above average players, but I'm more concerned about just how the league views them.
Yeah,
Like
I will. Sorry.
if they have them at that like not like just disposable type of linebacker, they also could very much become like a Rashawn Evans.
Yeah, that's true. I do say I suspect the Seahawks really do like Ernest Jones a lot, and they're probably going to give him a pretty long extension, and he'll just be there for a while because he's only like 25.
Yeah,
He's still young. They got him for, in my opinion, pennies on the dollar. What
Right.
They gave up. So I don't see any reason why they wouldn't extend him. They already have a ton of needs on their defense. I don't think they want to add linebackers another need, even though it already is one essentially.
I mean possibly but depending on what they do will give us a good insight into like how we should view him. Because if multiple teams have just been like, he's not worth anything long term, then we know that he could very much be, out of the league at 27 years old.
True. I do suspect that they're probably going to give him a 4 or 5 year deal.
But we've seen that a lot. What is it? Kamau Grugier-Hill, like he was top 5 linebacker, like multiple years. Can't find a home, and like he's barely into his 30s.
That's true. Yeah, essentially you got the big names, and then you got the guys that bounce around and do well everywhere. Frankie Louvu, Bobby Wagner, Blake Cashman.
I don't know.
And
if
you
I'd
got
put
the young
Wagner
guys.
in there.
Well, I mean, everywhere he's gone, he's been unstoppable. He's just old.
Yeah. He's
So
one
you
of those that's kind of just he's a vet. Like it's expected that he's just better than everybody.
Yeah. You got guys like Jake Campbell, Quay Walker, the young dudes that aren't going anywhere. Diane Himley.
I don't see it.
Which one?
Henley.
I don't know. He's pretty freaking good this year.
Yeah, he's been a dynasty darling for years, but I don't see.
Himley's in his second season.
Yeah,
Years.
it's 2 years. That's multiple years.
1 year
Years.
as an intern, and then 1 year at the top.
It's felt like 10 years. I've seen so many hype pieces on him.
Well, he was really good his second year.
Years.
Years. All I don't know. I'm a Chargers fan, and I'm really excited about him. He's easily our probably third best player on the defense behind Derwin and Khalil. Probably a top 20 off-ball linebacker. Leaves a few guys in between the top and there.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah. I don't know. I hesitate to be like, oh, he's a top 10 off-ball linebacker as he stands right now. Give him another year playing well, but I really like him. Years. Well,
All right. Anything else you guys want to add?
No.
Nate Landman. Cheap.
Hey, I sent you an offer that included him. You just didn't want everything else that went with it.
I don't remember, but I think your offer was Justin Herbert related. That's a lot.
You are a Chargers fan, so you can't play.
That's fair.
All right. Well, we'll continue talking the fun stuff here. For those who want to join in, by all means, join in. Thanks for listening in, and keep the activity going because league's more fun when we're making trades. And yeah, I want to see if we can top the 28 in a week. I think 30 in a week is a fair target to aim for. So let's get at it.